Welcome to the Awaken on Purpose podcast, where each week you'll hear inspirational stories of heart-centered leaders who have awakened to their higher purpose and taken that leap of faith to follow their heart and make an impact in the world. Get ready to be enlightened, empowered, and transformed with your host, Jennifer Spohr.
Excited and honored to welcome as a guest to our show today, Allison Del Fium. She is co-host of the What the Faith podcast, a space for the faith curious, helping people become more interested in the journey than the destination, more passionate about conversation than conversion, and more driven by empathy than by division. Allison's faith journey began through an unlikely friendship with a devout follower of Judaism. That foundation allowed a freedom to be curious and ask questions when it came to religious studies, combining history, science, and culture to look critically at how spirituality impacts our daily lives. It would be fair to say that the study of religion became and remains a borderline obsession. Over the past few years, Allison has advocated for better interfaith dialogue with various communities, especially within the realm of Christianity, helping people realize the other isn't so different after all. I really love that. And I'm really excited to have this conversation. Welcome, Allison.
Thank you so much for having me.
Allison, I know this is a big question, but so what inspired you to do the work that you're doing today?
Yeah, so What the Faith, which is probably my main project around spirituality right now. I had a few projects just in the past doing books and resources, but it's definitely always been very focused on interfaith dialogue. I had a little bit of a unique, coming to spirituality story. You know, I grew up in a culturally Christian Easter Christmas family, but never really spent much time thinking about a higher power or just how faith kind of plays into our daily lives until I went to college. And just being in the college atmosphere, you're, meeting all different types of people. And as you brought up in the bio, I became very good friends with a devout Jew. And that was really the first time I'd ever even been around people who could really articulate how faith played out in their lives and how faith shaped the way they see the world. And I thought that was so amazing. And it kind of very much made me question. I'm like, well, if someone was to ask me, what religion I am, I'd probably say I'm a Christian. But how do I really know I'm a Christian if I've never studied it? And how can I say I'm a Christian if I've never compared Christianity to any other religion? So I went on about a 2-year journey and read the Book of Mormon, the Quran, the Torah, the Bible, got a little bit into Eastern religion, but mainly focused on Western religion, even got into the psychology of cults and organized, systems and structures. And that really, though I ultimately came to the conclusion that Christianity worked best for me, just through that process, I became friends with people of all different religions and really saw that there's some major gaps in between people who identify with certain faiths, understanding not only other different religions, but even their own. And so that really kind of sparked the interest to help people care more about how faith plays into our daily lives and see how, connect the dots between all different religions, I would say.
That's amazing. I am already so intrigued. My own spirituality and faith is most certainly the epicenter of my life. Everything revolves around it. I feel like, I haven't studied different religions to the extent that it sounds like you have, but I have worked with enough different people and been on a journey enough to recognize that I feel like there are a lot of different songs, right? Different things about different religions, but there is one truth. And that is that there is a God, right? There is that higher power for us.
Totally. I would agree with that.
Yeah, and that's really where I focus, a lot of my content, because I feel like faith and the concept, the belief in that higher power that transcends religion.
Absolutely. And I feel like too, one thing we've noticed, so I co-host the podcast with my significant other, and he has probably even a crazier background with religion, and he was raised a Jehovah's Witness and left and is shunned by his family. And so he has his religious experience is a lot more negative, I would say. And so, we have kind of these polar opposite experiences, and then we do this podcast together. And every podcast we've done, whether it be with, a Catholic, we've interviewed a Satanist for our podcast, we've talked to Mormons, atheists, agnostics, Buddhists, whatever it may be. I think the underlying theme throughout of them is trying to feel like they're a part of something that's bigger than themselves in some way or another. I mean, I think even with atheists and even the Satanists we talk to, they want to belong to a community. It is like a part of their identity. And in a lot of ways, even if you choose to be an atheist, that is what your faith identity is. You're putting faith in solely science or solely that there isn't a God or a higher power. And that is your faith in a lot of ways. And so I would say that's absolutely correct, that there's a huge connection between all of them. And then, if you really want to get into the history of how Western religion and Eastern religion started, you can see the dots between Judaism, and then Christianity came next, and then Islam came after Christianity. And so even on a historical level, without doctrine, they're all very connected.
Absolutely. I find it so very fascinating. Allison, I believe that every experience in our lives serves a higher purpose and shapes who we are. What experience in your life do you feel has been the most significant in shaping who you are today?
I would say, honestly, the day that I met my very good friend, who's practically my brother, who's a devout Jew, like I mentioned earlier on, that was a pretty big shift, I'd say, in just where I was at, I think, in college. And, I had actually, when I started college, I was very focused on music, and I still do things within the music industry and help out, but my whole life was focused on working in the music industry. And I saw it didn't matter how much I achieved at a younger age or whatever, I never felt really fulfilled by that. It didn't matter how many awards I got. It didn't serve any real purpose to me. I felt very empty. And I feel like, so meeting someone who was able to articulate their faith, it really just kind of sparked, like, almost instantly a very big curiosity in the spiritual, in religion. What is this all about? I think that was very pivotal for me. I'd also say, not to cheat the question, but there's a second pivotal part, and I think that really was when I met my significant other, because I had studied cults and, negative religious experiences for a good amount of time, and I felt like I knew a lot. And then to meet and befriend someone and then eventually fall in love with someone who had gone through those types of experiences, I think it really shined a light on my naiveness to, spiritual trauma and abuse. And that was like really kind of a click moment for me, where I realized that, like, hey, spirituality can be an amazing thing for people. And so why don't we talk about faith the way we talk about politics or our daily jobs? People talk way more about their career than they ever do where they're at spiritually. And I find that to be a problem. So I'd say, like, those are two moments that were really, really pivotal.
It sounds like it, absolutely. And I can relate to what you're saying. I have similar feelings around how, again, our spirituality is really the center of the essence of who we are. Yet you would think that we would discuss that as a primary topic, but we really don't. That's one of the reasons why I'm so passionate. I'm on multiple social media platforms, but I'm the most passionate about being on LinkedIn, because I really believe that there is a correlation between, the career, the ideal career that we choose, and who we are as spiritual beings.
Absolutely.
That we should be aligning our work with our deepest beliefs and values and our gifts, because God created us, with all of these beautiful gifts, and created each one of us to be unique. But so many people, criticize themselves and the way that we were created.
Yeah, I think a great testament to that is just, even what you see going on in our world currently. You come from a global pandemic, and we have protests now and all these things. And to me personally, and I've spoken a little bit publicly about this to people, and I don't know why people aren't bringing it up, but when you think about everything that's going on in the world, like in my eyes, I think it also shines a big light on it's a spiritual issue at the root of it. I firmly believe that, where people are so consumed with other aspects of their lives that I think, and I'm guilty of this too, where instead of just taking a step back and seeing how the spiritual is playing out throughout everything that's going on, whether that be in your job or in the political sphere or the health sphere with COVID and all these kinds of things. I think that is, I always felt that way before. I always felt that a lot of our issues and tensions within the world, I think, can be, brought back to it's a spiritually rooted issue. But now more than ever, I very much feel that way. And just talking to a lot of people that maybe don't have faith or don't believe in a higher power, I think are really struggling right now. I mean, it's a hard time for anybody. And then I feel like if you don't feel like you know where your identity lies, or you feel like that the weight of the world is on your shoulders and you're supposed to solve the world's issues, I mean, I couldn't imagine how tough and stressful that is.
For sure. Absolutely. I've had way too many experiences in my life that cannot be logically explained to be able to say, there isn't a source of creation, a God, a higher power out there. And I completely share your perspective on everything that's going on right now. I really actually feel like all of these world events and things that are happening right now, there's just so much oppression and so many things that have been suppressed for so long. I feel like there's a healing that's happening also.
Yeah.
Allison, there are a lot of people out there, especially right now with the condition that our world is in currently, who may be feeling an increased sense of urgency to make an impact. They might be feeling called to do more. What advice would you have for those people to be able to take action today?
I've been thinking about this a lot, actually, because I feel like the biggest thing, if people want to make an impact or a difference, I would say really what they need to do is think about what their skills are. What are you good at, and how can those skills be applied to make a difference? So I had an opportunity to start a interfaith dialogue show, and that's how I'm making a difference in certain people's lives. But I would say that is the biggest thing. If you want to make an impact on people, I think just sitting back and really thinking about what you're good at, what you care about, and which ones of those cross over with each other. I think also too, so often because social media is an echo chamber, I think it causes a lot of pressure on people to feel like they have to follow with the group and do exactly what the group's doing. And I've had a few conversations with people that are very spiritual who, their religion doesn't condone them to maybe necessarily go out and protest or post negative things on social media. And I feel like there's a lot of pressure on people right now where it's like, well, my religion doesn't condone me to do that, but that doesn't mean I don't care about this issue. And it doesn't mean I don't want to make a difference and I don't want to help. And so I think that's been a big thing that I've just had to remind myself of, and also help remind other people, where there's not one way to make a difference in people's lives or to make a difference for your nation or your community. And I think that's the beauty of it, is that I believe that God gives us different abilities and skills to do good in the world. And I think just honing in on those and being in touch with your own emotions and where you're at and what you feel very called to do, I think is really important. And I think just taking a step back, especially if you feel the urgency to get out and do all these things, I think oftentimes with the urgency, people end up saying things and doing things that they might not necessarily mean. And so I think just sitting back, meditating on it, praying on it, whatever it may be, that would probably be my advice.
I agree. It is difficult. And, this goes beyond social media. You talk about social media, but I think that need to go with the group, or to feel accepted. That's probably been around
absolutely.
Since the dawn of time.
Yeah, totally.
But your advice was priceless. I agree with you that, the biggest way that you can make an impact in the world is to get clear on your own vision and what your cause is, right? And then commit to that. It might be social injustice. It might be the healthcare industry. It might be politics, whatever it is. Just decide what that is for you and commit to that. And that's where you can make the most difference.
Yeah, absolutely. And the reason why I brought up, and another thing that kind of ties into this is, I think also one of the biggest challenges right now, and I think why we're feeling so much tension in the world, is we've kind of been faced with not only just these difficulties, but there's also become a lot of like visual barriers, right? So like in Portland, there's the people who wear masks and then the people who don't wear masks, or the people who go to the protests and the people who don't go to the protests. And so there's just been like, just because of the course of events, these like very visual divisions between people. And I think that if I had one wish for just this time right now, it would be to alleviate that, where people didn't see it as like one side or another. And that's why I brought up social media, because I've just been seeing that a lot recently, where people just seem to be floundering to keep up with everything that's going on in the world, but then also feel like they're being a part of a greater movement or thing, instead of, I think, just taking the step back and seeing like, hey, well, here's what I know, here's what I don't know, here's what I'm good at, and here's all the things I'm not good at. So what do I do with all those things?
It's doing that. I also think it's tapping into your intuition as well, in terms of where your soul is guiding you to go. I believe that's one of the many ways that God speaks to us, is through our intuition. And sometimes we're guided to do things that aren't part of the group, right? Yeah. Or that don't make logical sense. But our mind, as faithful as a servant that it is of this life, and our intuition, our soul's guidance, is eternal. So I think it's important to listen to that as well in making those decisions. And it's important to be informed, but to respect each other's perspective as well, I believe.
Yeah, totally.
We don't have to be divided, right?
Yeah, I would agree.
I wish for the same, Allison. I really do pray for world peace. I know it sounds cliche, but I really do every day.
Yeah, I saw this one post by a female kind of theologian, and it was photos of some of the riots and looting and, buildings on fire. And the caption was, I wonder if Adam and Eve knew when they sinned in the garden that this is what the result would be. I thought that was so powerful, because it was just like, it was one sentence and it was just all these photos, and that kind of just wraps into, my whole thing in before about this is just so rooted in the spiritual. And I think that's the thing too, is just talking to people where it's like, man, like people need a little bit more Jesus, a little bit more Buddha, a little bit more Allah, like whatever it is, just to be able to, I think, just have some, like, view other humans with dignity. I think that honestly, if anything really breaks my heart, it's that, where, people on both sides of the political spectrum and all different opinions, like, wishing death upon other people. I mean, it's just the biggest of the sins, I guess I would say.
Well, the sad part is that looking at everything that's going on and everyone's actions in the world, everyone at the end of the day, no matter who they are, is a product of their physical conditioning and their beliefs. That is what influences wars.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if everybody could look from that lens, right? Look through that lens. I'm not saying condone behaviors. I'm just saying, if you look at it through that lens, there would be more compassion and understanding and empathy, and probably better communication, right? And then maybe we could start preventing some of these things that are happening and experience more peace.
Yeah, totally.
Allison, if someone's interested in connecting with you and checking out your show, where is the best place for them to find you?
Yeah, so a few places. So you can find us on any podcast platform. Just type in What the Faith. If you'd like to go to our website, learn more about my story and my co-host story, you can just go to www.whatthefaith.space. And you can find us on all social media. Just type in What the Faith space. Yeah, that's where you can find us. We got a few awesome episodes coming out recently. Our goal has been to cover a different religion every week. So we just wrapped up Islam. We just did an episode on Satanism, and I think our next few ones will be more on progressive Christianity.
Awesome, Allison. Thank you so much. It was truly just a joy to speak with you and an honor to have you as a guest. I appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jennifer.
Thank you for listening to the Awake and on Purpose podcast. Please visit us and subscribe to the podcast at awakeandonpurpose.com so you never miss an episode. To learn more about how you can connect with your higher purpose and take that leap of faith to make your impact in the world, visit us at jenniferspor.com. And while you're there, be sure to join our email list for exclusive offers and a weekly dose of inspiration.